Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews. I'm your host Gary, and of course joining me today is Iain.
Hello.
And Geoff.
Yo.
And today we're going to talk about the 2008 movie The Wrestler by director Darren Aronofsky. Darren Aronofsky is a director who had made some pretty interesting independent movies before The Wrestler. He had made Pi, which was his breakout movie, and then he'd moved on to make Requiem for a Dream. It's another story. And then, of course, The Fountain, before eventually coming to make The Wrestler, which is, again, a very low-budget independent movie that tells a very real story about real people from real backgrounds. Iain, wouldn't you give us the synopsis for The Wrestler?
Well, the story for The Wrestler, it follows Mickey Rourke and his character of Randy the Ram, who is an aging wrestler from the 80s and has gotten to like his 50s and 60s now, and he's finding it hard to actually carry on doing what he loves and is settling down and having to get a normal mundane job this late in his life, and the relationships with his daughter, but at the same time the draw of the passion of getting back into the ring and having one more match. It is a phenomenal movie. I love this movie. I'm a massive wrestling fan, and when this film first came out, I was a bit, unsure how they were going to actually tell the story, because there have been a few wrestling films in the past, Hulk Hogan's legacy, shall we say. But Darren Aronofsky is a phenomenal director, and he tells a dark story. When he tells you a story about something, be it heroin, or learning a secret code and not being able to tell anybody, when it comes to telling the story of an aging wrestler, he couldn't have picked anybody better than Mickey Rourke to play this character.
I gotta say, I'm not a fan of wrestling, and I'm not a fan of Mickey Rourke especially. Yeah. But, wow, somehow those two come together in this film. And you've probably heard the hype about The Wrestler. But I came to this film, I'd not seen it before, it was completely new, I watched it last week. And I have to agree with Iain, it's a great film. And it's not, I think mostly it's because it's not actually so much a film about wrestling. It is a story about a man who's coming to the end of his professional career. He's a man that's given everything to that.
Yeah.
And as his career ends, so does pretty much like everything that he has. He comes to realise that he has nothing but that left. Really, that's it.
Not being a fan of wrestling, you and I have had many conversations which has ended with somebody screaming at me saying wrestling is fake.
Wrestling's not fake!
But then you watch The Wrestler, and like Geoff said, not being a fan of wrestling, you see the realism that goes into it. The fact that these guys, they have to drive hundreds of miles just to wrestle one match in a dingy warehouse. They've got a tiny little room at the back where they can get ready, and they've got to tape themselves up and repair any injuries they've got from maybe the night before. And I love just Mickey Rourke interacting with the real wrestlers that he meets in the background. Those are actual guys who actually work for a living and try and make some kind of headway in the art of wrestling.
There's a kind of over-the-shoulder camera view for the majority of the film.
Very documentary-like.
It is real-life style, as though it was a camcorder, just some guy with a camcorder following him over his shoulder pretty much most of the film. There are scenes where the camera comes around and you get a bit of face emotion, and it comes in as such a contrast as well, because you have the moments where it's all like whoa, like the big wrestling bit, and he's doing his little things to put on a big show, which it actually involves they kind of wrap razor blades
Yeah.
into their wristbands,
Cutting themselves.
and then as they're down, like pretending to be hurt, they'll get out these little razor blades and make little cuts and incisions in themselves to try and increase the blood gore factor.
Just want to add as well that in the film, it's not an effect when he cuts himself. Mickey Rourke actually cuts himself with a real blade just to simulate how the wrestlers actually do it.
There you go. That shows you a dedication
Yeah.
to this film. But then, they get into the dressing room, and then it's just kind of all boys together.
Yeah.
There's actually quite a camp kind of side to it.
Second, we got Havoc and Cobian versus Billy the Kid and Lex Lethal. Third, Sabian versus Devin Moore. Fourth, Judas the Traitor versus Rob Echoes. Intermission. Fifth, Kevin Matthews versus Inferno. Sixth, we got Sugar and DJ Hyde versus the Funky Samoans. Seventh, Paul Enormous and Andy Anderson versus Jim Powers and Papa Don. And last but not least, for the strap, we got Tommy Rotten versus Randy the Ram.
But
It's
like other thing
actually
that comes up.
flawlessly recreated that, because
Yeah.
I've actually been backstage with wrestlers in a wrestling arena, and they are really quite laid back, and they're just rehearsing and practicing their moves, talking each other through their steps, finding out how their lives have been since the last time they met up and kicked the crap out of each other before they shake hands and meet next time. So
You kind of actually impresses you that there's a real professionalism there. These boys know their craft, and that is what it is. And then there's a real sensitivity between them as well, which the film, that's where it really excels, is it in expressing the sensitivities both of Mickey Rourke's characters and also all the side characters as well.
Come on, guys, let's all go take a shower together.
See, when you step away from the wrestling, like we said, there is a story of Mickey Rourke's relationships outside of the ring as well. He has the relationship with Marisa Tomei, the aging stripper, yeah. And I really hate that woman. I really do, because I've watching it the first time and then watching it more times after that. I love Mickey Rourke's character. I love Ram, and I just want him to be happy. Obviously, he's had his limelight and he's fucked it all up with drink and drugs, like a lot of professionals do. And he's ruined all of his relationships, and then he's really come to this point where he just wants to start settling down, and he tries it with Cassidy, and she's wary of him. She has her own relationship, and that's another beautiful thing about this film, is that we have her character to follow, which is actually a complete... Well,
it runs in a tangent with
Yes,
his,
yeah.
but there's a lot of parallels between the two stories.
yeah,
Whereas when he's there as himself, but she's actually doing her job
Yeah.
whilst she's there as a performer, much in the same vein as he is. But
They're both showmen of the very kind of very superfluous physical kind, They're both using their bodies and their ability to move, really, to entertain people.
yeah,
And even though one's just getting naked and the other one's putting on a violent display, it's still that same the need to be desired and wanted that is actually driving them in those careers. And in Mickey Rourke's case, his character's case, he's actually driven him to put to the side all the things that were really valuable in life, and as he comes to the end of his career, he sort of starts to begin to realise that.
yeah.
Whereas the girl he takes on, Cassidy,
Yeah.
he kind of comes to fancy her and he tries to start a proper relationship with her.
But she doesn't want it.
Yeah.
She holds him at an arm's length, and I'm just like,
she's got
you're
a kid,
supposed to
doesn't she? And so there's a little bit of she's perhaps a little bit older and wiser than his character in some senses, in that she is guarded about the kid, and she does take the child's interests at heart. But the film is brilliant at exposing the contrast between their display showman life
yeah,
and the actual reality and sensitivity and complex individuals that are behind it.
See, following her character, as the film develops, she starts to open herself up to him, but he is getting further and further this black hole of these bad things happening to him. That by the end, she doesn't want him to step into the ring, and he's just like, no, I want to do this. And that's what really kind of pissed me off about the character, because I'm like, you had all these other chances, you know, but that comes from repeated viewings. Watching her character just develop over time to realise that, yeah, wrestling might be fake. You know, she has the conversation about him, you know, oh, you're just going to hit each other with chairs. And I think he gives her a look, and I'm just like, yeah, it does hurt to get hit by a chair. You know, there's the match he has with a not so well-known wrestler named Necro Butcher, where they staple each other with dollar bills and they cut each other up. But that's what I love about it, because obviously wrestling is a blood sport. You know, you've got the art of the wrestling where they're throwing each other and countering each other, and, you know, doing the suplex and things like that. But when they cut themselves, the crowd roars and the adrenaline starts pumping. And as a fan of wrestling, if you come from the outside, you don't actually get that. But then you watch this film, and you just see the emotions that they put into their ring actions and their outside actions that make them more real people than just the characters that you see.
That's the masterstroke about this film, is that these people, it feels like a documentary film because they feel like very real people. They're very vulnerable. They have a lot of human traits that they wear so openly. They wear their hearts on their sleeves because they are showmen or showgirls. And the film really explores all those human elements as to what makes them human, what makes them tick, and it explores their faults. It also really emphasizes their strengths as well. Yeah. And so that there's such a nice contrast between these characters and their dilemmas, and you see it as an audience, and you can see where, you know, how they can make things right. And it really upsets you when the characters are just unable to move on or to accept some things or even understand them because they've lived in, you know, one way for so long. And it is a really heartbreaking film to watch as well. And Mickey Rourke's delivery as the wrestler, as the Ram, it's it's a comeback for him as well, because as an actor he's had a pretty rough ride, and so his comeback, he's reaching the end of his career, or maybe it's now been relaunched as a result of this, but he has a nice symmetry with the character he's playing as well. Yes. And that really brings forth the whole actor-character dynamic.
What was that all about?
It's the Passion of the Christ. You have the same hair. You never seen it? Dude, you got it. It's amazing. They throw everything at him. Whips, arrows, rocks. They beat the living fuck out of him the whole 2 hours. And it just takes it.
So the art of this film is in being able to, the way they've crafted it, they've made it so that the emotion in it feels absolutely real. And there's one scene in there where he's having an argument with his daughter, and there's a real moment in there where you see how brilliantly Mickey Rourke's been cast, because his daughter she's kind of having a go at him, and to me it came across, it appeared slightly transparent that it was acting on her part. But then the camera goes to Mickey's face, and Mickey Rourke, he's got this terrible plastic surgery. He's getting a little bit of the Stallone syndrome where he can't really move his face properly. But I tell you, when his daughter turns around and is like, I don't want to have anything to do with you, you go to Mickey Rourke's face and you can see on his face as though that was really his daughter telling him that she doesn't want to have anything to do with him. He emotes in this film brilliantly, and he is that character through that film.
Get out.
I really enjoyed Requiem for a Dream, and it is of that same kind of ilk where there's just raw emotion in it, and that's what it's all about. It's about getting the audience to experience raw emotion.
But this is where I give the credit to the director, Darren Aronofsky, which all of his films, they hit you like a freight train. once you experience the the messages and themes that he goes through with all of his movies. So yeah, Mickey Rourke was perfectly cast. It's a good job because Nicolas Cage and Hulk Hogan were amongst others to take the part.
Hulk Hogan could not do it.
No.
So, favorite scene, Geoff?
It's really hard to pick. It's really hard, but I mean, there's some lovely scenes between Mickey Rourke's character and
Cassidy.
And he's about to go to the ring, and he turns and he looks to her and he says, I belong here. This is the only place I don't get hurt. And it was that moment I was like, I really feel for you. And I'm like, I think I might choke up a bit.
Made you feel for wrestling?
Yeah, that it really made that. The scene is punctuated with really emotional scenes, but that was the one that really, that one got me. So that's probably my favourite scene.
Right.
You hear them? This is where I belong. I gotta go.
No, Randy.
My favourite scene is the one that's most memorable to me, is where he has now retired from wrestling and he's got himself a day job behind a deli counter, and he's in the meat locker area, and he's put on the hat and the gloves and the coat, and he's getting ready to walk out behind the counter, and he can hear all the fanfare, all the crowd cheering his name, and he walks past the plastic canvas out into the counter, and the fanfare dies down, and all you can hear is the ambience of the supermarket and these customers. I want that one, I want that cheese, a little bit more, a little bit less. And just also to add to that most of those scenes were improvised as well, and most of the customers didn't even realise they were shooting a film or that he was, Mickey Rourke. So it was, that was my most memorable scene. But I did like the scenes where the old wrestlers are there giving autographs, and there's just nobody there. It's just like nobody cares about them anymore. They're just kind of, they're charging ridiculous amounts for autographs just because
pictures,
pictures, because it's the only way that they can cash in on their names. And you go to modern day conventions now, and you still see Lou Ferrigno and some others that are just still there. They're just empty booths, and it is really, really sad. And it's to the point where other wrestlers have watched The Wrestler and burst into tears watching it, because it's all of their stories told. It's not just one story. It's a universal thing about not just also wrestlers, but everybody, that once they get to the end of their professional careers, life seems to end for them. So so most of those were my favourite scenes. It's a fantastic movie. So.
Good to see you, bro.
Hey, look at you. Wow.
You know what? I didn't think we were going to do this.
Yeah, you and everybody else.
Sunday night, I get a call and they say he's back in. It's on again. I'm like, what?
So listen, when you get settled in, you want to go over some of the things?
What things?
Some of the spots.
Okay, how's this right here? I'm the heel and you're the face. Done.
My favourite scene has to be just all of the improvised things for Ram. The Nintendo game that he has at home. And he plays with the little kid, and the little kid's like, "You haven't got Call of Duty?" He's like, "Call of what?" And I like that, they actually made like a little Ram figure for him to give out, and the posters at the beginning.
It was a real metaphor, that SNES thing, wasn't it? Like an old throwback from the 80s, and he was still kind of, his mindset was still back there.
He was the champ, and he was the man. And that's the beauty of this film, from the moment it starts all the way through. You may not be a fan of wrestling, but you will enjoy the story of Ram.
Yeah, there was one nice little nod that I liked, is where it's a small spoiler, where Cassidy leaves the strip club, and one of the other strippers shouts out to her, "Hey, you've left your shoes behind." It's a nice nod to the fact that when wrestlers kind of retire or they walk away from the ring, they leave their shoes behind. It's a kind of so it was a nice little nod there, and also just shows the symmetry once again between her story and the wrestler story. So I cannot fault this movie at all in terms of its direction, acting, music, editing. Everything is almost perfect. It is a phenomenal movie. It's not a movie you should take lightly either. I wouldn't just rush out and watch the film. You have to pick your moment to know when you're okay to watch watch a film like this. Otherwise, you probably, if you don't invest into it, you're not going to get as much out of it. So put time aside to watch this movie. Don't just put it on in the background, and you won't regret it. Fantastic film.
Deserves attention.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
You got your balls to the wall.